Welcome, Nick, to Unleash the Knowledge's podcast, Everyday Extraordinary, where it's my job to push the message that we all have extraordinary capabilities within us that simply need to be channeled and activated. And I do this by having amazing conversations with everyday extraordinary people like yourself. So it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks so much for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, you are the new author published in 2020, Fit for Success. Subtitle reads Lessons on Achievement and Leading Your Best Life. The book is, it seems you've obviously had tons of success, and the book is kind of your framework of what you followed and what you've learned through tons of research. You can clearly see the research throughout the book. And two things I love about it that I'll note right now is one, it's pretty wide range. So, which is good because I don't think success is just one path. It's not, one aspect. It's not just your mindset or just your discipline or just your work ethic. There's many aspects to it, and you highlight all of these throughout the book. So I think that's super helpful. And then the other piece that I noted in some of my posts on Instagram and other social media platforms is you gain a big to be read list afterwards with all this recommended reading, and you obviously share a lot during the book, and then at the end you cap it off with a nice list of all the books that you read that inspired you and helped you with your own success, and obviously helped with the book itself. So I thought that was awesome. It's always great to read a book and then gain a bunch of other books from doing so. So good work in that regard.
Yeah, well, thank you. I like that too. So if I'm reading a book and I'm going through it, usually I'll be making some notes. And of course, I'll pull up Amazon, make a search for it real quick, add it to my list, and that's how it goes. But I also know that you can list out a bunch of journals and articles, things like that. But for a lot of people, those are tough to read. But at the same time, a lot of folks doing that research, almost all of them write books. And so if you can just reference their main books, those are usually really easy to read for most people. So that's why I did it that way. Just I think it's easier for most people.
Got it. Well, it's always great for me to, I love hearing someone's personal experience. So something that you've only been through that I might not be able to obtain anywhere else other than hearing right from you. But then you always, to be able to connect that unique experience to an actual book or to someone else's story, then that kind of gives you another perspective and allows you to combine two perspectives or opinions and really be able to understand or grasp the idea in itself. So that was a great aspect to the book. But awesome. So we'll hop into some questions and share more about Fit for Success, and we'll go from there.
Cool.
So first question, for those that may not know you or are just coming across my page, your page, can you share a bit about who Nick Shaw is?
Yeah, so long story short, I've always been into fitness. I always loved working out. Went to University of Michigan undergrad, graduated in 2009, went out to New York City and was a personal trainer, and pretty quickly realized that wasn't really what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And at the time, this was probably 8, 9 years ago, maybe even more, maybe even like a decade. Online coaching wasn't really a thing. It wasn't that big, at least. And so my co-founder and we started transitioning to more online stuff, and quickly realized, like, wow, this is really scalable. This is probably where the future is going to go. And so we started to shift from there. Eventually made it into creating digital products through Renaissance Periodization. RP Strength is what we go by. And it just did really well. It's always evidence-based, no fads, no gimmicks, treat people well. Those were always the foundations, the cornerstones of RP. And slowly, word of mouth spread. We created digital products. Those started to spread like wildfire. And we got people results. People love to talk about it online, the social media. And here we are 6, 7, 8 years later.
Awesome. Yeah, I think one piece, and I'm sure we'll touch upon it in a second, but something that really caught fire is these transformation photos. People love to see the before and after. Obviously, it takes some serious hard work and discipline to create that photo, which most people either don't want to go through or they don't quite know about, but they do love that image of that before and after. So, I checked that out myself, and it's definitely inspiring.
Yeah, totally. No, it is a lot of hard work. And Instagram was really like the perfect tool for that, really. And again, if we go back to, 2011, 2012, when we first started, I mean, Instagram was really just coming on the scene, which is, really fascinating kind of look back on that we were, maybe some of the early movers on Instagram.
Got it. So if someone were to just come across my page or even in Barnes and Noble, Amazon, your page, they see Fit for Success, awesome cover, the growth of the mountain of adversity and keep, pushing forward. What's the number one takeaway you're hoping readers to gain after reading your book?
Well, you actually said it earlier, so I'm really glad that you did. It's success is really more than one thing, and success is really universal. So the one takeaway is really no matter what you want to be successful in, these habits are going to carry over. So whether it's fitness, whether it's business, whether it's life, overcoming adversity, all these things, if you apply these principles and these habits, you're going to be successful. So really for me, that was when it all started to come together. So most of my background is in fitness, but then I was able to look at, applying lessons in business. And then, my wife was dealt, bad health news this year, kind of really started to tie everything together. And I was like, this framework really applies to everything. So really at the end of the day, that's what I wanted. And that's why I really wanted to get the book out before 2020 was over, because everyone has been negatively impacted by COVID, by 2020. So for me, it was really important to get this book out this year, so that way it could help a lot of people going forward into 2021.
Awesome. Well, through the book, and it pretty much builds out the table of contents. It's these 7 habits of success, and that piggybacks on what you just said, that it's not one habit, one kind of direction to take to achieve success. I'll list these out quickly for the audience to hear, but the 7 habits are work ethic, internal locus of control, positive mindset, discipline, purpose and meaning, failure, and recharge. Which of these 7, 2-part question, do you believe is the hardest to master or perfect? And then if it's a different answer, which of these do you believe is the most important to start with and be able to attack?
The toughest one to really master. So if we use an example of fitness or as an entrepreneur, we always think that more is better. We always want to go, 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 grind, 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 grind. That's kind of just the way Instagram's built. You see all those quotes and everything. It's very easy to fall victim to that idea that you only have to work. And that's the only thing that matters. But at the same time, you really have to balance that. And so I think a couple other people that had read the book were like, it seems like the theme, like the common theme with this book is balance. And I thought, well, that's probably a pretty good way to look at it. Because if you go too far in any one direction, you're probably going to get bad results. So really, I think recharge is probably the hardest one to do, because we're almost wired, right? The entrepreneur type, we're wired that, I just want to go, go, go. But at the same time, if you only do that, you're probably going to burn out at some point. So I think that's a really hard thing to find that balance for a lot of people. The most important one, I want to say internal locus of control. And a lot of people, they're not familiar with that term, but they know what it means. So internal locus of control means, are you focusing on things? So if something happens to you, do the actions that you do they matter to the outcomes, or are things just happening to you? And so if you believe things just happen to you, you have an external locus of control. So one quick example that is really good at summarizing it, the weather. Well, we can't control the weather, right? If it's raining, well, it's raining. We can't do anything about it. But if you have an internal locus of control, you're just like, okay, well, it's raining. Now what can I do? Well, I can wear a raincoat. I can take an umbrella with me. There's all these little things. So I think that's a really important one. Just focus on the things you can actually have some control over.
Absolutely. And you shed a little light towards Stoicism, and that's obviously the trending philosophy today with Ryan Holiday and Tim Ferriss. And that's totally true. Control what you can control. And I come from a basketball background in college hoops, and something that my Coach Hurley always said was, life should be happening for you, not to you. And that kind of speaks to the same kind of volume of being able to take on what you can, and whatever comes your way, if it's out of your control, you have to roll with it to some extent. So a lot of chapter. So I'm very curious about the early days of building RP Strength, Renaissance Periodization. There's articles stating that you were the one-man team, and you reached 7 figures, I believe, without either any full-time employees. You might have had some contractors, but you seem to have done it a lot yourself. Can you share any insights from that journey? What worked, what didn't? Maybe it touches a bit about having balance in that work. I'd love to share firsthand experience from the man himself of being able to build an empire like this.
Yeah, totally. Well, so that's a little misleading, right? It's sort of like it's just a one-man show. It's never a one-man show. I mean, my co-founder, Dr. Mike Israetel, PhD in sport physiology, him and I have, It's sort of like the yin and the yang, right? He's really good at content creation, but some of the things he's not so good at, I tend to excel at. And so it was always a good partnership. He was technically labeled as an independent contractor, so I just want to make sure that people don't think that it was like all me or anything. It's definitely a lot more than just me. But that being said, so one of the things I learned pretty quickly early on was the idea that I'm sort of used to, I'm a go-getter. I just want to work hard. I want to do things. But you kind of get caught in that trap of when you're in the early stages of a small business, you're like so in the weeds of working in the business that sometimes it's hard to take a step back and to focus on the longer term picture. And eventually, like, we were just getting to the point where I was almost getting burnt out. And so when I was able to kind of take just a little bit of a step back and be like, okay, I need to hire in some people that know things that I don't know, because I mean, there's a million things that I don't know, of course. So let people come in, let them do what they're good at, and that really, I think, helped lead to more growth.
Got it. Yeah, that's a good point. And through my own experience shortly of kind of running my own show, it's tough because you have so many ideas and there's so many ways you could take an idea, but at the end of the day, 20% in 10 directions is not as effective as 100% in one direction, or maybe two directions. So
Totally.
that's wise wisdom. I appreciate that. So if you could go back to your 22-year-old self coming out of University of Michigan, any advice that you've obtained kind of later in your life, or in your recent life, that you wish that younger self knew coming out of college?
Yeah. So when you're 22, you're just getting out of college, you think you know everything. And, looking back, it's just funny because you'll hear this a lot. You will hear people say that, oh, I wish I knew then what I know now. And I like that idea because I might think that I know a lot now. And it's funny because as you learn more, you sort of realize that you don't know so much about so many things. That's the interesting part about learning. But it's really that mindset of always be open to feedback from other people, right? So don't be so close-minded. Don't have a big ego, of course. And it's hard when you're younger because you do think you know everything. But really, it's being able to kind of detach from that, step back and be, okay, I need other people to come in and help me because they're going to know things that, like, I don't even know what I don't know, right? So if you approach it with that mindset of just kind of always trying to get a little bit better, and the cool thing about fitness is if you're into lifting, you're always really trying to get better. So that mindset was maybe slightly easier for us, but at the same time, I do kind of look back and think there's a lot of time spent where I wasn't focusing on self-improvement. I wasn't reading, I wasn't learning because I was working so much in the business. And now that I'm able to kind of step out of it a little bit, now I'm able to read a ton and write, and was able to do this book. So there's a lot of benefits to being able to let other people come in and help you out.
Yeah, definitely. And that's why I got so many books behind me. And that's a phrase I've kind of been carrying for the past 6 months or so, that you don't know what you don't know. And it's honestly an extremely alarming phrase that you could be doing something and it could be going down the wrong path, or whatever it may be. But it's that curiosity, it's that love to learn, to keep expanding your mind to see what you don't know and talk to the right people and be able to gain that knowledge. So yeah, definitely something that most 22-year-olds do not know, and something that they could use moving forward.
Totally.
Stuck at home, a lot more time to be able to do that. So hopefully they're taking advantage of it. Great. So you went to University of Michigan, and then higher education. Obviously, I have a background in I actually have a master's somehow, which happened through basketball, which was a great benefit.
Yeah, that's awesome.
However, I'm a big advocate for self-education. Reading on your own, podcasts, YouTube videos. Starting a podcast yourself, so you could just ask random questions or something that could help you out. I'd love to hear your take on higher ed versus self-education, or even just the importance of continually self-educating yourself through your whole lifetime.
So I think higher education will always have a place. And if we sort of move into the future with more artificial intelligence, more technology, there's always going to be a need for it, right? Because we need people to help run the machines, help build the machines and all this stuff. So I think there's always going to be a need for it. That being said, you always have to focus on self-improvement. You should always be trying to get better. You should always be trying to improve. So there's a big reason that this whole genre is really exploding more recently with technology, with social media, because there's a big want and a big need for it. So I don't really think it's like one or the other. I think there will always be the need for higher education. especially as things evolve and we become more technology focused. Well, you need really smart people to be able to run this stuff. You need more, it might just shift a little bit to more, software engineers, more technology based careers versus some of the old traditional ways. But at the same time, you just always got to be focusing on getting better. I mean, hopefully that never goes away.
Yeah, definitely. And, even though there is a trend maybe away from college to some degree in today's world, I personally don't think it's just going to be a complete stop. You know, that will always be needed. However, now there's so many new ways to learn. So that's something to maybe explore and maybe grab a new skill or some knowledge for a cheaper fare. And maybe you'll be able to learn it in a quicker amount of time. But that's kind of doubled or coupled with your, degree, at least for
Totally.
my take. You should always be finding different perspectives and different opinions and learning from different avenues anyway. So you can do that with both sides. So even though the book just came out and it was a tough year for you, I feel so bad for your wife's diagnosis. I hope she's doing great. COVID.
She's doing great.
Okay, good, awesome. And COVID obviously affected just your day to day, I'm sure, and hopefully none of your family members, but a lot of people have been affected by it. So the book did just come out, but can the Unleash the Knowledge community expect more books from Nick Shaw heading into the future? Maybe more of a entrepreneurship angle, perhaps sharing more about RP strength and the journey you've taken?
I have maybe two different ideas. It was always good. I've learned a lot already from trying to do this book. Kind of went like the hybrid publisher route. So that was really interesting and kind of navigate Amazon and all that. I would be really curious to potentially do more down the road. I have a couple ideas. There tends to be this subgroup of people that are just really phenomenal at sticking to their diet plans. And so we have a bunch of data from our app. I would like to be able to maybe pull some of that and interview a bunch of these people that are really successful and sort of tie it into that. So that's maybe one idea. Maybe there's an opportunity because it's funny, looking back, I've read a bunch more books since this, rough draft was finished this summer. And it's like, well, I could probably add a lot more to this book. So we'll see, maybe a couple of years from now, it could be cool to do something like that.
Cool. And I touch upon a bit about the recommended reading at the back of the book, but I'd love to hear if there's maybe 2 or 3 top books that had the most impact on you, or maybe you found yourself gifting to others.
So I'll give you one that it's actually not in the recommended readings, ironically. I think maybe I read it after I finished the rough draft, but it's called The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. I think it's just a really good book. And the whole premise is you just do a little bit each day and that's it. And you just keep going. And it's really about the consistency. If you're consistent for months and years on end, that little bit better, right? You're going to keep getting a little bit better. And it doesn't feel like you're really doing anything, but after a while, 6 months, a year, it starts to compound. And all of a sudden, a few years down the road, if you keep doing it, keep working on the same habits, you're sort of this totally different person. So that's one. I'll give my most recent read that I thought was really interesting. It's called Peak Performance. And so it was really good. Actually just finished it this morning. And it's really, it would have been the perfect book to reference for the recharge chapter because it's really all about that. And ironically, it talks about periodization because they work with a lot of athletes and that whole concept. And that's actually as part of our name, right, of our company, Renaissance Periodization. So it struck me as a really good book that I think if you're into athletics at all, people would really like it.
Awesome. Well, the first book, Slight Edge, I personally haven't read it yet, but I do know that the compound effect is very similar to it. That book, but that's another one. Just consistent improvement, 1% better each day. After a month, after 365 days, you're going to see some serious improvement. And but you're right. That's the athlete mindset. That's fitness, and even just day to day. That's an approach that most people should take just to try to get a little bit better each day. Read 10 pages.
Absolutely.
Do something different each day. So awesome. And 2 last questions. One, do you have a personal mantra that you live by that resonates with you on a daily basis? Maybe you visualize it, you harp on it in the morning?
We've already talked about it a little bit, but it's really just the idea of get a little bit better every single day. So it doesn't have to be these crazy, monumental, huge improvements, but you just consistently keep going with the same habits, same routines. Again, just reading a little bit each day, doing a little bit of cardio each day, making sure you get in, you're eating the healthy foods, things like that. Again, it can feel like, I think really the main thing is a lot of people think that they have to do these huge things all at once. And it's like, really, that's not how it works. It's really just do a little bit, and then you just keep doing a little bit each day, and all of a sudden it does grow and compound. But a lot of people, they just miss that idea. They get bored or they get sidetracked. But it's like the really successful people, I mean, they just keep doing these things for months and years and decades. That's really the secret.
Absolutely. And last question that I ask all guests that sheds light to the name of the podcast. What is your definition of extraordinary?
I feel like I'm a broken record here, but if we take the word right and we break it down into ordinary, and then you're extraordinary. So again, it's this whole idea that you just kind of take these ordinary tasks, these ordinary things, and you just do a little bit extra, keep doing a little bit extra. And that's it. I mean, really, that's how you become extraordinary. I know people love these, you need these magic secrets or formulas, but it's like, at the end of the day, it's almost that simple, right? And if you read enough about successful people, that's the thing that starts to stick out. They're fairly ordinary people, right? For the most part. I mean, obviously they're intelligent or whatever, but they're consistent, they persevere, they have grit, whatever you want to call it. They just keep going.
Absolutely. And, no, I think it's a great message and it should be said over and over again. And even though you said recharge is a very important aspect to one of the habits, I agree. I also think that discipline as well. And that speaks to the consistency because, and you actually just posted something yesterday, I believe that it's one thing to do great things every once in a while, but to do the great thing every single day, that's where there's true, impact and results. And that's what is extremely challenging for most people. So not everyone is going to choose to do that, but only so many people will reach a certain height of success or whatever that may be for them. So I love that. That's awesome. Well,
totally. Yeah. That's the secret, right? If you want the secret sauce, that's it. You just, you do the good things every single day and you do them long enough over time, you'll probably become great.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last thing I'll say is that even though, I do think that most people I think everyone's capable of reaching an extraordinary level. And if someone down the road looks smarter, I think it's not necessarily that they were born smart or they were smart at your age or whatever level that you're currently at, but it's because of that daily action, that daily improvement that they got that level. I mean, even through my own life after, flip switch that I had probably 6 years ago, I've already reached tremendous heights that I never thought of. And it wasn't simply because I just became smarter one day or I became more actionable. It was simply because I did become actionable. I took the right steps each day to grow in that way. So I think that's an encouraging thought to mention as well. But Nick, thanks so much for hopping on the show. This is great. And I'm going to keep spreading the love of Fit for Success. I have a video up. I have a caption up there too, so more people can learn about it after they listen to this episode. Is there anywhere I could send listeners or viewers to learn more about you and your work with RP Strength?
Well, if anyone wants to get the book, you just hop on Amazon. That's the easiest way. Follow me on social media at nick.shaw.rp on Instagram. Or, if you are more into fitness and you want to check that out, check out at RP Strength on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, Nick, thanks again. And hope you have a great day and hope to stay in touch as well.
Cool. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.